Hello, I'm here with my monthly look at the previews catalog from Diamond Distribution. It's no longer the one-stop shop for the direct market, but it still has most of the stuff. So we'll get started here. As usual, start out with these little guys. From DC. A couple things of interest. Mild interest. Batman Dylan Dog. It's a collection. I believe I have the first issue of this. I think the second issue's out, and there's gonna be a third issue. And then there's the collection. I haven't read it yet. If you listen to the Comic Books Are Burning in Hell podcast, they talked about the first issue quite a bit. Anyway, of interest, some great Italian art in there, if nothing else. Superman, the Triangle Era Omnibus, Volume 1. Mostly mentioning this because of how odd it is that they're releasing an omnibus of the Triangle Era. At some point in the early 90s, there were 4 Superman titles, or 3, then they launched a 4th one. And so to give everybody a reading order, there was a triangle on each cover that gave you the number for the year, which was a good idea. I'm not knocking it. I don't know whether we needed 4 Superman titles, but I was reading Superman during this period. This one has Superman 49 through 63, so that's it. This volume ends, half a year, a little more than that, before the death of Superman gets ratcheted up. And I was reading these comics at the time. They were boring, but they were dependably boring. And anyway, it's an odd thing. It feels like everything possible can get a collection nowadays. Very strange. Also, I wonder if they've collected the stuff from the John Byrne period to the Triangle Era. Has that been collected, or is it just a dead spot? Because they were essentially the exact same runs. It's just at some point they decided to put numbers on them. Batman by Grant Morrison, book 1. Just a new collection of the Grant Morrison run. I have never read that run. I've been curious about it because Grant Morrison can be entertaining. I generally stay away from the big franchises, though. Batman, Superman, X-Men, Spider-Man. Any sort of mainstream run on those books I stay away from because they tend to sprawl too much. They're never contained. But I may dip in and try this. At least I'll consider it. Anyway, nice fat soft cover, 448 pages. I don't know how many books they would need to do his whole run, but at least that sort of thing I feel pretty confident they would actually do it. And here's something to mention. 4 different Elseworlds collections. Batman Volume 1, Superman Volume 1, Justice League Volumes 1 and 2. These are new editions. I think they've already released this stuff before. The Elseworlds books, I read a ton of these because I was reading mainstream comics back in the 90s. And they really vary, generally from, not too bad down to terrible. I have a hard time thinking of any that are actually excellent, but they still had a lot of excellent talent that worked on them. Just at the sample names here, there's Kyle Baker, Ted McKeever, J.H. Williams III, P. Craig Russell, Dave Gibbons, Howard Chaykin, Gil Kane, Jose Luis Garcia Lopez. So a lot of good names worked on these comics. I found the graphic album format that they use for most Elseworlds to not be a great format, personally, at the time. I thought the printing was always a little muddy, and those stiff little spines slick paper, and they were, let's face it, overpriced. But that said, I do have some affection for some of them, and I know that people, especially people that tend to be just a few years younger than me, have a lot of affection for these comics. So I'm not trying to shit all over them. I won't buy these. They're a little pricey for what I would consider, but if I see them used somewhere, I will pick them up at random, especially if they have a creator on them I like. Last thing to mention, Swamp Thing by Rick Veitch, Book 1, Wild Things. Rick Veitch's run on Swamp Thing has been collected before into 3 trades. At least one of them is very expensive to get, which sucks. And so Rick Veitch is the guy who took over from Alan Moore. And he had it from 65, famously up to issue 87. I can't remember what the exact issue. I think it was 88, but 88 was the Jesus issue where Swamp Thing was going to meet Jesus, and DC got cold feet, said they wouldn't do it. After initially approving it, Rick Veitch resigned in protest. That issue has never been published. I live in hope that they'll reprint these and conclude it with the final issue. But I doubt that will actually happen. But still, I love Rick Veitch's work, and his run on Swamp Thing is good, and I hope more people read it. And the fact that it got a second printing is a little unbelievable to me. This is a big book too, 488 pages, which means probably one more book will collect all of Rick Veitch's run. So worth checking out if you are interested in Rick Veitch or Swamp Thing or both. From Marvel, pretty much nothing of interest, but I figured I would go ahead and mention a couple of these omnibuses. Captain America Volume 3, Fantastic Four Volume 5, edging out of the interesting comics of the Marvel Age into the 70s. This Fantastic Four omnibus especially looks pretty dreadful. And they say, you didn't think we were going to stop with Volume 4, did you? And it's like, well, no, why would you stop with one of the great runs on a superhero comic ever and not just continue into just forgettable dreck? But there you go. And one more thing from Marvel. This one I'll be less shitty about. Incredible Hulk Epic Collection Ground Zero. So the Ground Zero storyline has been in trade paperback for ever. I mean, since the 90s. So this collects more than that because these Epic collections are always pretty big. But just thought I'd mention it since the Ground Zero story is Peter David writing and Todd McFarlane on art. You know, when I was 14, McFarlane was my favorite artist, so I've read this stuff. Honestly, cannot tell you if it's in any good in any way. I don't remember it at all. But anyway, early McFarlane, just thought it was worth pointing out. This was a surprise to me when I bought the previews. A separate little pamphlet for IDW titles. Completely unnecessary. IDW has become more and more uninteresting as a publisher in recent months. Scott Dunbier has now left the company, so makes you wonder if the artist editions are going to continue through them. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't find anything in here I cared about. Personally, not saying it's all bad stuff, but just I didn't find anything I particularly cared about. Yeah, but I will say this, completely unnecessary. I don't really want these. The DC, I understand you have to order them separately, but why does Marvel have this magazine size thing, you know? Yeah, unnecessary. Waste of paper. All right, I'm starting off on a negative tone. I apologize. Let's get into the meat of the previews. Maybe we'll find some stuff that's worth talking about. In fact, I know we will. All right, from Archaea, Cursed Pirate Girl, Melodious Mutiny, by Jeremy A. Bastian. If you're familiar with this Cursed Pirate Girl material, this is collections of 2 single issues, but it adds up to 128 pages, so still pretty hefty. Bastian's art is the real draw. Gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. Unique art style reminiscent of 15th century engravings. And that's pretty accurate. So, if you've never seen this stuff before, I would highly recommend checking it out. From Dynamite, and I don't know how many other times I've actually spotlighted something from Dynamite. The Adventures of Red Sonja, omnibus trade paperback. This is the Frank Thorne material from the 70s at Marvel. Marvel feature 1 through 7, Red Sonja 1 through 15, and the original, and her appearances in Savage Sword of Conan. So the only stuff I think I have the Frank Thorne issues only. And those are all pretty beautiful, though marred by ugly 70s printing. This stuff is presented with fully remastered color pages, so warning, that could be awful. But if you are interested in this material, this might be a good way to go. It'd be cheaper than buying the individual issues. Really love Frank Thorne stuff. I do not have the artist editions that Dynamite put out of this material, but I've always desired them, and will probably never own them. That's okay. But yeah, really love Frank Thorne's art. That's the main reason I'm mentioning this. Also from Titan, but still related to Conan, Conan the Barbarian Omnibus Volume 3, Savage Sword of Conan Omnibus Volume 3. So this just reprintings of the Conan stuff. These are pretty hefty books. So, once again, with anything that's an omnibus, you would only recommend it to true diehards. I'm not a true Conan diehard. I would love to have this Savage Sword of Conan material, but not in this format. But I thought it was worth mentioning. Also from Titan, I didn't really know what to make of this. Some of you out there may know more about this than me. Fu Action Deluxe Edition, a cult classic from the minds of Jamie Hewlett and Matt Wakeham. I don't know who Matt Wakeham is, but Jamie Hewlett, the creator of Tank Girl. Anyway, has a lot of random stuff, 90 pages of unseen preparatory art. So this sounds like the sort of thing that is even more for just diehards. Says there's a story in here drawn by Philip Bond, who I believe also drew some later Tank Girl material. But anyway, Jamie Hewlett, I feel like they've done everything they could to milk every bit of drawing and art he's ever done. And here's one more example of that. So anyway, that was worth mentioning. A little pricey, $100, but it's also a big hardcover, 464 pages. Looks like it has a slipcase, so I'm sure it's a nice presentation, but for Hewlett heads only. From Image Comics, Free Agents #1, written by Kurt Busiek and Fabian Nicieza, art by Stephen Mooney, Triona Farrell, who I'm not familiar with. It's just a new series, looks like a new superhero comic. Anytime Kurt Busiek's name's on something, I'll take a look at it. And this might be the kind of comic I pick up in single issues, something I rarely do anymore, but not sure if I'll want to buy a collection of it. But yeah, that team, Busiek and Nicieza, will take you back. For anyone who was a Thunderbolts fan 100 years ago. Here's a Jeff Lemire book, Bone Orchard Tenement. This collects the series Bone Orchard Tenement 1 through 10. and a big hefty hardcover, 9 by 12, so it's oversized. I haven't read Bone Orchard, but I'm mentioning Lemire because I have found him to be of interest, and I know a lot of other people are very interested in him. One thing I noticed by Image this month is there were tons of collections. It seemed like more than normal. So I won't cover all of them, just the ones that are of interest to me. Last Man, Book 5. This is, I believe there's going to be 6 total. Anyway, I really enjoyed this series, the first half of it, when it was released by First Second. I'm looking forward to getting all of them from the Image run and reading them together. Highly recommended. Haven't read this material, obviously, hasn't come out yet, but I read the first half, really enjoyed it. I mentioned the first issue last month, but here's Precious Metal number 2, art by Ian Bertram. This is another series I might just pick up in single issues because I don't want to pop for the collection when it comes out. But I do like Ian Bertram's art quite a bit. Buried here on the page, I thought it was kind of strange. Saga number 67. I almost missed this. New story arc. Saga returns for its epic 12th arc, blah, blah, blah. So I'm assuming it's been on a hiatus, and now it's back to keep going. I was under the impression that Saga was a huge seller, and I don't really understand why it's just buried here in the middle of a page. Don't care really one way or the other, but just very surprised to see that. I don't know. I assume it's cooled off, but it still seems like it would be a comic that they'd want to spotlight a little bit. Also, new issue of Savage Dragon, number 272 by Erik Larsen, as always. For the handful of people who still care. From Ablaze. I just thought I'd mention this because it looked pretty interesting, and something I'd never heard of. Trace box set. There's a version that's signed. There's a version that's signed plus sketch. The signed is $140 for softcover books. Looks like there's 6 books in the set. 880 pages, 190 if you want to get the sign and sketch. I have no idea what this is, but this is an award-winning Filipino smash hit. Yeah, I've never heard of this, don't know anything about it. All I know is what's on these little covers and what's on this art back here, which looks pretty good. So anyway, I'm hoping this shows up in stores just so I can take a look at it. I don't plan to buy it, or I don't really ever plan to buy it, but I'd still like to look at it and see what it is. We obviously don't get very much stuff from the Philippines over here, so that would be kind of interesting to check out. From Dark Horse. Skip quite a few pages here. Usagi Yojimbo back at Dark Horse. Here's Usagi Yojimbo, Volume 39, Ice and Snow. Same format as before, in color. Yeah, Volume 39, very impressive. I believe this is the 40th anniversary of Usagi Yojimbo. And great to see that it's still going. I hope that he's able to keep doing it for as long as he wants to. Den, Volume 3, Children of Fire. This is a resolicit from October of last year, it says. So hopefully this comes out. Dark Horse lately has been increasingly unreliable. I mean, here is all these covers they don't have done. They keep canceling books and resoliciting them. It's getting very frustrating. H.P. Lovecraft's The Call of Cthulhu by Gu Tanabe. He's done, what was the other Lovecraft stuff he did? I can't remember. But Dark Horse has put out other Lovecraft adaptations by him, which are really beautiful. I mean, his art's fantastic. Printed at 6x8, which frankly it'd be nice if it was printed bigger. The art really would benefit from a better presentation. But not really my thing, but I know there are people who really love his work. This I thought was worth mentioning. The publisher is Amar Chitra Katha, and they are an Indian publisher that puts out Tinkle, a comic magazine, since 1980. It's been going forever. And now they're going to be reprinting some things here for the American market. Saptarshi, Mahadeva, Krishna. This is Tinkle Gold, which just basically looks like a sort of sampler. A joyous ride through the rich tapestry of Tinkle's celebrated history. So anyway, and then actually there's more. Shakti and Ganesha. I don't know anything about these. I just know that we don't get a whole lot of comics from India over here. I lived in the Seattle area for many years, so I would see occasional Indian graphic novel type books in used bookstores. We have a fairly large Indian population here. Usually they were sort of religious stories, almost like if you found Bible stories in a bookstore. I'm not saying these aren't also religious, but they seem a little more meant for entertainment. So I'm curious to see them. Assuming any store in my vicinity actually orders these things, which I don't know if they will or not, but I would like to see them in person just to see what the hell they look like. Pretty interesting to me. In the same vein, from Book Palace. I guess Book Palace is the publisher. And I've spotlighted something from them before, though I can't remember what. But here's a whole page of old British comics released in new volumes. Billy Bunter, The Complete Comet, Jet Ace Logan stories, The Complete Don Lawrence, Billy the Kid. That stood out to me. Don Lawrence, great artist. Dick Turpin, Robin Hood, Sea Wolves. And then down here, Wrath of the Gods and the Ghost World Limited Collector's Edition. This one's big, 13 by 10. All of these look like they're pretty good size, 11 by 8, 9 by 11. But here's the catch. They're all very expensive. This one down here, The Wrath of the Gods and the Ghost World, has Frank Bellamy art, so that stood out to me right away. $101.99 for 124 pages. So pretty hefty stuff. Now this looks like it's sort of a artist edition style. The stories have been professionally scanned and color adjusted to create the feel of the original artwork in this deluxe collector's volume. Anyway, very intriguing to me. Once again, not the sort of thing I'm going to order. The prices are just too high. Most of these are $55, $65, $45. Excuse me. So just a little too expensive for what they are. But I'm curious. I would love to see them. I love that this stuff's getting reprinted. But probably just a little bit out of where I'm going to go as a buyer. This is the one I'd really like to see. I'd love to see what a Frank Bellamy artist edition style book would look like. And hopefully I get to check one out at some point. From Caliber, Batron, The Evil Eye by Wayne Van Sant. This was a miniseries Caliber published a million years ago. I don't think it's ever been collected. I could be wrong about that. Wayne Van Sant worked on the Nam from Marvel. I believe he also worked on, I can't remember if he did any Vietnam Journal work or not with Don Lomax, or if he just did other war comics during that era. But yeah, interesting cartoonist. Interesting-ish, at least. I thought I'd mention from Cartoon Books, Bone, Volume 1, new cover for the 29th printing. This is for the giant omnibus, the 1,344 pages, black and white. It's gone through 29 printings, which is unbelievable. Just can't even fathom that. Glad that people are still buying it and still discovering it, though. From Cinebook, Emily's Inheritance, Volume 1, The Hatcliffe Estate. That title doesn't really sell you, does it? But this is Volume 1 of 5. The writer-artist is Florence Magnin, who I've never heard of, but as with anything with Cinebook, I'm always a little curious. Then there's 2 volumes of 13 Mystery Volume 3, and 13 Mystery Volume 4. Volume 3 is written by Jan, and the art is by Eric Hiniot. And the Volume 4 is written by Alicante, and the art is by Francois Bouc, who's a phenomenal cartoonist. So, anyway, more of those. Always worth mentioning the Cinebook stuff, even for the stuff I don't intend to buy. They have put out a lot of quality work over the years. Drawn and Quarterly, a new Yoshihiro Suge book, Oba Electroplating Factory. I think it's going to be 7 of these Suge books from Drawn and Quarterly, 7 or 8, and they've put out several now. Anyway, great cartoonist, always worth mentioning. Raw Sewage Science Fiction by Mark Bell. His stuff, I was talking to someone about him recently, and his work is more fun to look at than it is to read. But this is a hefty book, 336 pages, and it's a little hardcover, 5x7. That's interesting. So anyway, if you're familiar with Mark Bell, might be of interest. If you're not, I'd probably pick up something else by him to try out. From Fantagraphics, quite a few things this month. Hate Revisited number 2 by Peter Bagge. Really looking forward to this series. Comics by Charles Burns. Now this is 80 pages of made up comic covers by Charles Burns. I don't know how much of a narrative it's going to have, or it's just going to be pretty, but one thing you can guarantee with Burns is that it will be really pretty. Should be interesting to look at, that's for sure. Here's the headline, though, for this month. Peep Show number 15, the final issue by the late Joe Matt. It's a nice big 36-pager, $7. Highly recommend it. I was able to read this in its unfinished form, and it's a great issue. Really, it reads like no time has elapsed, even though it's been many years now since 2006. So 18 years since the last issue of Peep Show appeared, issue 14. So to get another big dose of Joe Matt after he passed away is a real blessing. So happy to have that. Highly recommend it. Please order it. I believe Fanta wants to do more Joe Matt stuff, and maybe if they do well with this, it will provide the impetus to reprint his older work. Another Carl Barks book, Donald Duck, Mystery of the Swamp. This is Carl Barks' Disney Library Volume 3. they're getting near the end of their Carl Barks reprinting. So I think it's the early volumes and the late volumes are kind of coming. They've done all the middle. So pretty exciting, pretty amazing that they've been able to push this through. Psychodrama Illustrated number 8 by Gilbert Hernandez. Mentioned earlier about stuff being for diehards only. This is for Gilbert diehards only. But I'm one of those, so I'm part of that tribe. Really great stuff. And it looks like it's a final issue. So there you go. The Comics Journal number 310. 300 pages. It's going to be a beast. Has an interview that Gary Groth did with Gerald Scarfe, which I believe is going to run about 100 pages, full of art. Big article on Bill Jemoss's time at Marvel, and a talk between Aidan Koch and Lale Westvind. Just great stuff. So I've seen some material from this issue. Looks great. 300 pages is incredible. We only get the journal, maybe once a year nowadays, so please support it if you're at all inclined. Mothballs by Sol Otero. Pardon if I'm mispronouncing, which I'm sure I am. Argentinian, so maybe it's Soleil Otero. Argentinian comic. I don't know anything about this comic, but I like the look of it. Looking forward to seeing it in person. Foul Play and Other Stories. That's another EC collection. This one with work by Jack Davis and Al Feldstein. Future by Tommy Masturi, if I'm saying that correctly. Collecting, I believe, the 10-issue series. I don't know who maybe he published that himself. I honestly don't remember. But sure to be a big, beautiful book. From Sunday Press and Fantagraphics, The Nancy Show, celebrating the art of Ernie Bushmiller. This is going to have... I honestly don't know exactly what's going to be in it, but I know that it's going to have some original art style presentation, featuring nearly 100 reproductions of original artwork, 150 comic strips, along with editorial contributions by a host of Bushmiller aficionados. The other exciting thing about this book, it's going to be 13 by 9, 152 pages, but it's only $23, and the Sunday Press books are all gorgeous. The only thing you can say bad about any of them is that they are expensive and therefore just prohibitive to casual buyers. This one, at least $23, I think somebody could take a chance on. Obviously, some people love Nancy, some people don't. I'm in the camp of loving Nancy. I think it's great. I'm really looking forward to seeing this book. I hope it really satisfies. EC Fan Addict number 6, edited by Roger Hill and Grant Geisman. I'm mentioning this for a couple reasons. One, I guess just there's enough EC people out there that maybe someone will be interested in this. Also, Roger Hill, one of the guys who worked on this, just passed away. He is one of the basically preeminent EC scholars. He was an original art collector, comics historian. So it's nice that what might be his final publication is coming out through Fantagraphics. I think that's great. Cutting Season by Banu Patrap. Trying to remember what the name of their previous book was. It came out from Stranger's Fanzine. People went crazy for it, loved his art style. So I was a little stunned to see this coming out from Fana. I think that's great. It's coming on the Fantagraphics Underground label. Anyway, hope that it does really well. His art style is as unique as it gets. Very interesting cartoonist. All right. From Floating World. Bozelli Collected Works Volume 2. HP. So there's going to be 3 volumes of this stuff. This is Volume 2. I have the first book, but haven't read it yet. I'll have to read it before I decide if I want to go for Volume 2 or not. Beautiful book, though. Beautiful work inside of it. Really interesting stuff. So definitely worth a mention. The Santos Sisters, number 7, by Greg and Fake. I imagine most people are either familiar with it and they either like it or they don't. I've seen people who really like it and seen people who really were turned off by it. I enjoy it. I don't think it's revolutionary or anything, but I really enjoy it. So, worth mentioning. I'm going to mention this one just because I was a little appalled when I saw this. Little People, Big Dreams, Stan Lee. This is a 32-page book, so it's essentially a children's book about Stan Lee and how he's the comic book genius who created Spider-Man, the Hulk, and Iron Man. There's several Stan Lee books out there that position him as the genius behind Marvel. That's offensive enough, but you kind of go, whatever, I find the fact that this utter lie is going to be shoveled into little kids' hands to be way more offensive. And so, I don't know the people who worked on this. For all I know, it was just a paying gig. So I'm not trying to knock them for it, but I don't know. This book can go fuck itself. I think it's real shitty. Yeah. End of sermon. From Graffiti Designs. Here's another book to be very excited about. Brian Boland, Batman, the Killing Joke, and Other Stories. Art Gallery Edition. So Graffiti Designs has made some of the best artist edition style books. Just gorgeous design and production. I think them and Fantagraphics are heads and shoulders above everybody else. So I was very excited to see they were back with another book, and that it's a Brian Boland book. Killing Joke, fantastic. Bunch of other stuff in here, lots of covers. Boland has worked digitally for over 20 years, so you have to dig to find more stuff. But they still managed to put together 280 pages, 13 by 20 hardcover. I mean, I'm sure it's going to be drop dead gorgeous. The price, $225. Good Lord. Gonna have to sell blood to buy this thing. But I do really want it. Says they have a digital gallery section showing Boland's work using computers, annotated by Brian. Not very excited about that. Really hope that doesn't take up much space. Really only interested in the physical artwork. I love Brian Boland's work. I have an art book by him that I'm sure has tons of digital stuff, and that's great. But for something like this, if you're going to pay that price, and for this kind of book, you want to see the original art. So, anyway, worth mentioning, even if you can just look at it and drool over it. I'm sure it'll be a beauty. Speaking of expensive, from Little Brown and Company, The Adventures of Tintin, the complete collection set. This is something, it says offered again, so it means it's been out for a while, but I thought I would mention it because it has the original 23 adventures have been collected together for the first time. It includes Tintin and Alphard and Tintin in the Land of the Soviets. Don't know if it includes Tintin in Congo. I'm not sure if that's the actual title, but that's another suppressed Tintin volume because of racial caricatures. But either way, 1,648 pages, $200. That's a hefty price, but it's actually not a bad price for 23 books. I'm not as big a Tintin guy as a lot of people are, but they're still very good comics, and of course they're very important historically, and a lot of people love them. So thought it was worth mentioning. From Mad Cave, Flash Gordon Classic Collection Volume 1. This is another reprinting of the Alex Raymond material. IDW published 4 large hardcovers at least a decade ago. And I don't think it's been imprinted in any format since. This reprints all of Alex Raymond's Sunday strips from 1934 to April 1937. Includes additional background material and introduction. It's only 200 pages, and it does not say what the size of the book is. The price is $50, which is nothing to sneeze at. Those IDW books cost more, and they cost more many years ago because they were gigantic books. So I don't know what the presentation of these books is going to be, but I hope they're nice, and I hope that people that want them get them. Alex Raymond is one of the great illustrators in comics history. This thing has an introduction from Alex Ross. That should tell you something right there. It's nice to have this material available again, and I hope that it is well presented and deserving of people's money. All right, everyone, be careful. I'm going to get on my high horse one more time. From Oni, Epitaphs from the Abyss #1, a new EC comic. I think this is a terrible idea. It's not going to be good. Actually, scratch that. It might even be fine. It's not going to be EC, though. And I think that something like this just waters down EC's reputation. And it's totally unwarranted. I get why they're doing it. It's a easy way to get attention on an anthology, and it'll sell more than an anthology like this would normally sell. 40 pages for $5. So I'm not saying don't read it. It's awful. I have no moral objection to it, but I do think that it is basically just a bad idea to use the EC name. So, but yeah, some people will be excited. We'll see how it does. The list of creators doesn't really interest me very much, even though I like some of these people. But I just don't see much point. Also from Oni, Boulette's Notes, Back in Time. This book, I want to say this book already exists in some form, and this is a reprint. I'm not seeing any mention of that here, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, interesting cartoonist. He's French, worked on Dungeon, so worth keeping an eye out for. Wish I had more concrete information to say about it. I was actually looking through this and trying to remember, do I have any books by him? And I honestly couldn't remember. That's why I think that there may have been a version of this at one point in the past. But Faceless in the Family by Matt Lesniewski. New collection of his work. Don't know what the size is yet. Still to be determined, which, we'll see. The bigger the better with his artwork, and his art is really the reason to buy this. I don't know that as a writer he's evolved very much. Well, I hope that isn't true. I mean, I hope to keep sticking with him and be rewarded for that. But his visuals are just drop dead gorgeous always. So that's always worth checking out. From Tomorrow's, Jack Kirby Collector number 91, 30th anniversary edition. So the first issue of the Jack Kirby Collector came out in 1994. still going 30 years later. Tomorrow's has branched out into all these other magazines and books about comics. It's a magazine that I bought off and on many years ago and haven't really kept up with, but I'm glad it exists. I'm glad Tomorrow's exists. Not everything they do is of interest to me, but I think I think they do a good job on what they do, I guess is how I'd put it. And anyway, congratulations on 30 years. I think that's pretty amazing. There was only one title in the manga section I thought worth mentioning, and I think this is a new printing. Yeah, back in print. Go-Go Monster from Taiyo Matsumoto. I'm not a big Matsumoto guy, but a lot of people are. He's certainly an interesting cartoonist, always worth checking out. So yeah, I'm not sure how long ago this was in print, but Viz is putting it back into print. Thought I'd mention it. Okay, that's it. There's a lot of stuff in this previews, even if it was just stuff I wanted to talk shit about. So I'm grateful for that because, yeah, I like that there's a lot of stuff out there that is of interest. If there's anything you think I missed, if there's any thoughts you have on anything I did mention, drop a comment, let me know. Thank you.